Welcome to the interface of Flash. We're finally going to open up Flash now and take a look at it. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we're going to cover these things that are listed here in this bullet point. And to get us started, you'd launch just by going to your Start menu and Programs on a PC or on a Mac. You might want to use the Spotlight, or you can go to the applications and then find the executable to launch Flash. And so here I've launched Flash, and we have the welcome screen, and you can see that if you had items that you were working on before, they'll show up here. So here's recent items, snow scene.fla. So that's a source file, Flash file. And so if we're going to create something from scratch, we would choose something over here. And most often you're going to choose this top one, Flash file, using the ActionScript 3.0. Unless you're doing some sort of development that needs to be backwards compatible, you would probably be choosing the ActionScript 3.0 option. So if we click on that, we get a new file. And the first thing I want to show you is how you save your file. So if you go up to File, Save, or Save As at this point, then we are given the option to save a file. And notice here that if we save a file, it has a .fla extension. So that's our source file. And we can also save back a version if you need to work with somebody who's using CS3. Okay, and now if we look at the different areas, we'll start over here with the stage. Here's the stage where you create all of your artwork. And this area that's outside of the stage, that's sort of beyond the stage here, that's the work area. It's a light gray area around your stage. It's not going to be visible when you export out your final product, your SWF file. So you can have things over here that you can create and that you're going to bring into your stage later. Or if somebody's going to fly in, it can just simply come across from this area right here, and once it comes in, it's going to enter the scene. Our tools are over here. Now, before I start pointing out other areas, we talked about the stage right here, but before we start looking at other areas, let's make sure we're looking at this the same way. If you go up to Window and then to Workspace, now in Workspace we can choose how we want all of this stuff laid out. So you can see I've made my own here, or we can go to Classic. And if we choose Classic, we're in this layout right here. And if you're in Classic as well, then we can look at the same thing. Now if you end up moving stuff around, which I'll show you how to do here in a second, and then you decide you want to save one like I did, under Window, Workspace, and then you can say a new workspace right here, and then you would name it and save it, and then that would show up over here. So you can make your own custom workspace. Okay. So the tools are over here, and we're going to go over those in the drawing in color. But if you wanted to switch from different tools, you just simply hover over them and click, and notice that if I just hover here, it will show me subselection tool, and then I see A, and A is the keyboard shortcut. So if I just hit the letter A, it just jumps to the tool that I wanted to use. This one right here is V, so notice that I just switch V, A, and notice that what's going on with my cursor. So I'm able to change the tool there. And when you click on this area here outside of the stage or on the stage, you can change how you want to view it at 100% or 50%, or you can have this fill the whole area so you can have it fit in the window. And one thing to note is that now that's selected, the stage is selected, and like a lot of programs, what you do is select something and then you modify it. So here with that selected, let's look at our first panel. Over here on the right, there's this Properties panel. The Properties panel is a context-sensitive menu, which means that it changes depending on what I have selected. So in this situation we have the stage selected, and we can set up some basic stuff like under here under the properties, FPS, that's the frames per second, so you can decide how fast your video should go. Now if you go with 20 frames per second, that's probably pretty good for most people who have pretty good computers and that are watching it over a high-speed internet. You can also choose 30 frames per second if you wanted it to be video. Or you could cut it in half and do 15 frames per second, and that can affect the size. So that's one thing you can change here. And then the size, the actual dimensions, and here it's 550 pixels by 400 pixels. And you can change that, you can edit that and choose a different size. And then a default background color, and here again is the frame rate. Like a lot of programs, you'll see the same thing in multiple places. So here we can change the color of the background, we can change the size, and we can change the frames per second. So with these panels, now if you come up to Window, notice that there are check marks next to things that are out, panels and stuff. But Motion Editor's not. See, there's no check here. So if I click that, well, here we go. We have a new panel that's right here, Timeline, and now I'm toggling between these two panels by clicking on the tab, and I could actually click and drag this over to a different area. Okay, so now it's over here. I could actually drag this and set it loose by not putting it anywhere, and I can close it. And I can move over until I get arrows and resize things as well. So these are the panels. And over here you usually get panel options that are specific to this panel. So here we get panel options on the right side. And again, if you can always go up to Window and Workspace and then just reset your classic layout. Now there are also keyboard shortcuts that you can use, and on a PC you probably have to go to File Preferences, but if we go here, or Edit Preferences, but here on the Mac I'm going to an Apple, and then I'm going to Flash, and then to Preferences, and here I can see all sorts of different preferences that I can choose for my program. And also under here, under Preferences, keyboard shortcuts. Now keyboard shortcuts, if I look at File, New, I see that Command plus the N key is the keyboard shortcut to make a new document. And you can modify these if you'd like. So we talked about the stage where we work, right in the center there. The tools we're going to get to more in depth in the drawing and color section. The timeline. Up here is the timeline. And this red, this thing right here with the red rectangle and the red line, this is called the edit line, and this is called a playhead. And if I click this and drag it back and forth, that's called scrubbing. And when we have animation, we would have something here, and then we'd see it going out in time. So from moving from left to right is moving through time. Each one of these numbers, 10 is a frame. So if you have your document set up at 20 frames per second, like this one is, and then the playhead, by the time it takes the playhead to get to this 20th frame, is 1 second. So this would be 1 second of time right here. And there's the playhead. And the work area is the area outside of the stage that we talked about. And then the properties panel is the context-sensitive menu that changes depending on what you're using. In this situation, we used it to change the size and the frames per second for the whole document. And we saw panels and how they were resizable and expandable. And then we talked about keyboard shortcuts and the tooltips that you get when you hover over a tool. And that concludes this training session.